Hi everyone, thank you for joining today's webinar. So I'm Emily, Partnerships Manager at Webinterpret, and today I am joined with a special guest, Chris Gates, who is the Senior Product Manager at Linnworks. And today we will be talking through how, as a seller, you can unlock your growth and the winning strategies for you as an Amazon seller. So I'll just quickly go on to the agenda for today's webinar. So I'll start off by just going through the current state of the Amazon marketplace, followed by how expanding globally with Webinterpret can help you with any challenges. Then we'll move on to efficiency and automation with Linnworks, and then success strategies and best practices that you can take moving forward. So I will just start with the current state of the Amazon marketplace. So you're probably aware, being an Amazon seller, the Amazon marketplace is massive, and it's just continuing to grow year on year. Actually, in 2023, Amazon's net sales were over $469 billion. So that's actually marking a substantial increase from previous years. A lot of that has got to do with, global expansion and buyers buying on, multiple marketplaces throughout Amazon. It's also very clear that over the last few years, there's been notable shift towards online shopping. Consumers are a lot more comfortable with making online purchases, which is also leading to higher traffic and sales on Amazon. I'll just move on to the next slide so you can actually see the number of Amazon visits. So a lot of you will be UK sellers on Amazon today. So as you can see, there were 327 million visits on amazon.co.uk. But then as you look at Amazon in Germany and the US marketplace, there's a substantial increase. So in the US alone, 2.24 billion visits were on amazon.com as of March 2024. Which is a substantial increase from if you're just a seller selling in one market, especially if you're just selling in the UK. The US market is 31 times the current size of the UK market. So there's so much room for growth, which is definitely something that we will touch on today. But just following on from that, with a lot of online buyers now on Amazon, is also led to the number of active sellers on Amazon is increasing. So millions of businesses are now selling on the platform, which makes selling on Amazon Marketplace highly competitive, especially with the number of resellers on the platform, which ultimately can make it harder for brand owners to maintain the Amazon buy box. So we can also discuss today how we can support you to maintain the Amazon buy box and ensure that you're staying competitive on the Amazon marketplace, even though there are millions and millions of sellers. So although the low barrier to entry means that new sellers are constantly joining the platform, which can increase the competition, it does indicate a healthy, dynamic marketplace for both buyers and sellers. So I'll just move on to the next slide, where I'll just touch on some of the top emerging trends that we are seeing on Amazon currently. So AI integration. So there have been some new features, such as Amazon's AI-driven product recommendations and enhanced analytic tools to help sellers optimize their operations. There's actually also been an improvement in the Amazon Seller Central interface, which provides a more user-friendly experience and better data insights. You can also see here we have technological advancements, so AR and VR. So where as a seller, you can also gain a competitive advantage and beat the competition is by creating those videos, the AR and VR, which will ultimately enhance buyer confidence, and increase conversions. Also ensuring that listings are mobile friendly, as mobile is expected to be the primary channel on Amazon this year. They're expected to exceed $600 billion in 2024. So it's really important that you get those listings accurate and mobile friendly. Move on. I'll just move on to the next slide. Just before I touch on expanding efficiently with Webinterpret and how we can support you with your sales growth and beating the competition, I just wanted to touch on as well a lot of these challenges on Amazon are actually putting sellers off from expanding their reach into international markets. One of the challenges is Amazon regularly updating its policies and regarding the seller fees, shipping requirements, and product listings. So, for example, with the change in the FBA fees and storage costs, it can significantly impact yourselves as a seller, your profitability, which brings me on to some challenges that sellers are currently facing. As well as this, global supply chain disruptions have led to shipping delays, increased costs, which means that sellers need to plan their inventory more carefully and consider alternative shipping methods. So, as I touched on before, selling into the USA opens up millions of new potential buyers, as well as some European countries like Germany. So I now want to just move on to how Webinterpret can support sellers expanding into international markets, which will remove some of these barriers to entry, as well as the barriers of entry with Amazon's fees and some of the issues that you face on there. So I'll just start with how Webinterpret can support Amazon sellers to sell internationally and break out into the international markets. So what we do in a nutshell is we simplify that international distribution with a fully managed solution. So we manage all tax and compliance, all customs, and it's completely effortless for the buyer, with an estimated sales increase of 30% plus by using us. So obviously there's Amazon FBA and there are also other agencies that you could use to help with your international distribution. But I think it's also important to potentially consider using Webinterpret to support you to start selling internationally. Where we differ from other agencies and Amazon is that we do take away all of the barriers to entry and all of the issues that sellers currently face when selling internationally. So, for example, just to give you a bit of an idea of the process, a lot of our sellers that currently use us, they will actually send us their inventory to our UK warehouse, where we will then store that inventory. If you're looking to expand into the US, we'll store that inventory in a US warehouse, and then we will ship that inventory out from our US warehouse to the buyer directly. So all storage costs are covered, all tax and compliance is managed, customs is covered, and everything is fully managed. Some people have a question on, how we differ from being a reseller, and are we not just the same as resellers and agencies out there? One thing that we do differently is we ensure that the brand maintains full control of their products. So never do we own those products. The brand manages full control. We support with your brand store. We only sell products that you want to sell into the US, and you have an account manager where we constantly keep up to date and talk about our progress together. Another thing is that we don't charge for all of the other like storage fees, monthly license fees, or anything like that. Our aim is to partner with the brands directly, and then we will negotiate on any on any transaction fees that we take. But our idea is to help you to support you to expand into international markets on the basis that you will see an increased sales growth in up to 30% in the first 3 months, whilst maintaining full control of your brand, but not having to do any of the manual work yourselves. And then I'll just touch on a few more points. So we can help you with your listing localization and optimization, your ads management. As I said, there's local fulfillment, compliance and tax management, local customer support. And just to touch on that, we have been doing this for 16 years. So we do have a lot of knowledge. So even if it's just you wanted to have a call to discuss your options, then we'd be more than happy to have that initial call with you. Even if you don't end up using us, we're still here to help. So that's everything to do with Webinterpret and how we can help you expand in international markets, hopefully helping you to maintain your buy box and to have a competitive advantage. So the reason that Chris is on the call today is that Linnworks, carrying on from this, have some really good efficiency and automation, which can also help with working with Webinterpret and expanding into international markets. So I'll now pass over to Chris so he can talk through the Linnworks proposition.
Thank you very much. Okay. Right, so what we've just gone through, what Emily's just explained now as well, is that we're potentially increasing our order volumes quite a bit when we go and start selling internationally, where we weren't doing so before. And we often see, especially with the sellers that we work with, that there is kind of a subconscious worry that you're not going to be able to manage your increased order volumes, how you're currently working. So what I want to go through now is just a couple of ways you can think about automating and making your order management piece a bit more efficient so that you can handle all of these order volumes, okay? Because there are certain things that you get more bang for your buck for automating, the same with where you're focusing your efficiency gains. And I want to go through most of the important things about that now. So where should I automate? Really going to look at 2 places. We're going to be looking at shipping. We're going to be looking at who's going to be shipping this order, why, who are we shipping it with? Maybe we have multiple options as to how we want this order shipped. And where should it be shipped from? Because you may have multiple warehouses that you could fulfill an order from. There's 2 things that ideally we wouldn't have anybody trying to figure out on the fly at the time. We want these decisions to be automated so that you don't have to worry about them. And where should I focus my efficiency gains? We want to be able to find the most important orders quickly. That's a huge part of order management, is just knowing, okay, I've got all these orders. Which ones do I need to focus on? Which ones need to go out the door first? As well as picking as well. Make sure that we've got the best picking process we can. Okay, so I'm going to start with automating our shipping. And what you want to do is you want a system, an OMS, that understands your orders, understands where they're going, and you want to be able to set up some what we call rules that they know exactly what's happening with the order so that you can make that same decision over and over again without somebody having to make it for you. So we're going to start off with something like a flow chart, right? This is something that you'll see inside Linnworks, inside other OMSs, that allows you to get these automation rules working without having to know any code, without having to write any complex logic, okay? And we're going to start with an example. We're going to take our Amazon Prime orders. We're going to take the orders that we know are the most important orders, and we're going to do a quick check on them. We're going to see if they're going to the UK or not. Because we may have decided that if it's going to the UK, then we're going to use something like Royal Mail. Maybe that's something we've already decided, and we just want our system to automatically say, okay, if the order meets these criteria, take it to Royal Mail. We may want to then check, okay, we've got some more international orders now. We're playing by different rules. We want to ship via the EU. we're going to the EU, then maybe we want to do another check to check the weight of the order and the items on that order and send it either via FedEx or DPD if it's going over or under a kilogram, as an example. And just to make things a little bit more complicated, we can then say, okay, if you're shipping to the US, we also want to do that check on weight, but we also want to do another check on how much they paid for shipping so that we can see if it should be going to by USPS or UPS, for example, based on all this information about the order. And that's something that you can set up in an OMS like Linnworks that you then get running. It's running automatically for you. It's constantly checking every single order every time it gets placed to make these decisions for you so that you're not slowing down and you're not making mistakes trying to make these decisions on the fly. You know, every warehouse has 1 or 2 people in it that can look at an order, spot it a mile away and decide that's got to be shipped with this type of courier. You don't want that information stuck in certain people's heads. You want it written out, plain and simple, in a flowchart like this. Because remember, a good OMS knows a lot about your orders and your order items. It knows where the order came from, where it's going, what your buyer bought, how much they paid, how much the product weighs, and what options you've got, what tools you have in your tool belt for shipping this thing, so that it can figure out every single time what is the best way to automate your shipping assignment. That's just one part of automation that we want to get going here. The next part, as I mentioned earlier, is how are we going to fulfill this order? Who's going to fulfill it from what warehouse? So let's take something like order routing. So we want to route on stock level. That's usually the most efficient way of doing order routing. Is I've got multiple locations that could fulfill this order. I don't want to have to check which location can fulfill it. I want my OMS to figure out the best location for me. And what we're going to do is we're going to build out a system that will allow us to do that on screen now, that looks very much like how it would work inside an OMS like Linnworks. So what we do is we call these groups of locations networks. For example, here I've got a network written down here, an EU network. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add locations to it. And I'm going to add them in a sequence. So I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to add my Belgian warehouse first. So if it's going to the EU, I want to ship it from there. If not, then I want to ship it from my FBA. And if not, I'll ship it from the UK. I'll ship it from my Southampton warehouse. Now, the reason we have them laid out there and we have it laid out in sequence is because Linnworks is going to check the stock level of each of these warehouses in priority order. So it's going to check to see if this order can be fulfilled from the first warehouse. If it can, great. It's going to send it there to be fulfilled. It'll be up to that warehouse to fulfill it. If, however, there's not enough stock in that location, we'll move to the next location. Can it be fulfilled from there? If it can, great. If not, move to the final location in the list. The only other thing that we would want to do here to make it a little bit more complicated would be to understand if we want to be able to split this order or not. It's very different depending on what you're selling and who you're selling to, if it makes sense to split an order to ship it from multiple warehouses. But you'd be able to do that in a system like Linnworks as well. You'd be able to say, in this case, try and ship the whole order first. If you can't, then go back through the list, split the order up, ship some from warehouse A, some from warehouse B. You'd be able to do that with a system like Linnworks that can figure out how you should be shipping this and who should be shipping it. Okay, so let's say we're in the right warehouse now. We've got the right order in the right place with the right courier assigned to it. Next, we want to actually see these orders. We want to visualize them. We want to understand what they're for, who they're for, and what we should be doing with it, and which orders we should be managing first, because you may have a lot of orders and you want to work smart. You want a priority here. So first up, we want to have a system that can show you all of your, let's say, Amazon Prime orders or other orders, specific orders here that you need to get shipped first. You want a system that can do that visually. So you want to be able to set up what we call a view that will show you just the orders that you carry. Next, you want to look at, okay, out of all of those orders that I know I have to ship today, they're the most important, which ones can I fulfill? Because then you'll want to do something about those orders first. You maybe want to send them to a warehouse to be fulfilled. You may want to send them straight to the floor to do some picking and packing for those orders. And what you'll be left with is a view of orders that you cannot fulfill. Then there's multiple options as to what to do with those kinds of orders. You know, our sellers will maybe reroute them to another warehouse if they can't be fulfilled in the location that they're in. They may want to raise the purchase order to buy more stock. They might want to split the order up and only ship the parts that they can ship now and ship the rest later. Or maybe If you can't do any of that, you want to email the buyer just to keep them informed, to let them know that you cannot ship the order straight away. That is something that you'd want to do with an OMS that is very visual, that gives you a good overview of how many orders you have and in which state those orders are in, and which ones you want to be able to tackle first, because there are some orders that are more important than others, usually based by something like the received date of the order. You know, the older the order, the quicker you want to get it out. Next up, we want to talk about picking. So let's do exactly the same as what we did before. We want a visual representation, a view of all of my orders across all of my channels, across all of my geographies, thanks to Webinterpret. And we want to find all the ones that are fulfillable. Once we've found all those orders, we want to get them picked. And what we can do here is we can use a system like Linnworks has, its pick wave system, to essentially say, okay, I've got all these orders. I know how many my pickers can pick at any one time. So I'm going to select 100 orders and I'm just going to say, create some picks. It knows the capacity, so Linnworks can handle the rest and split that pick down into manageable chunks and flag them as important picks, because you may end up with a lot of picks that need to be picked throughout the day. You want to be able to communicate to the people doing the picking and packing that out of all of these runs that we've got to do for picks, all of these pick waves, these ones are the most important, because I've highlighted these ones as the most important picks in my OMS, and I want you to be able to get them out the door first. And it's all these little tips and tricks, all of these ways of visualizing and prioritizing and automating certain decisions with orders that will hopefully help you manage those larger order volumes that you might receive when you start selling on other marketplaces, thanks to services like Webinterpret. With your localized and translated information, you'll be selling more across other marketplaces than you were before. You've got to find clever ways of meeting that new, that level of fulfillment that you didn't have before. Okay, that is the Linnworks side of this, and that is some tips and tricks you can use to help manage those order volumes. I'll pass you back over to Emily now to continue on the rest of the webinar.
Thanks, Chris. That was really useful. Okay, so now I will just touch on the last agenda point for today, which is sufficient strategies and best practices when you're thinking about expanding globally. So let me just start by saying, so essentially position your brand for growth, optimize your listings, test your content, maintain your account health, protect your listings, and stay competitive with reviews and feedback. It's also really good to conduct thorough market research using different tools, or using Amazon's best seller list, or even using the help of Webinterpret. We do have a lot of market research and understanding of all of our time helping sellers expand internationally. So along with one of these tools, it can help you to identify profitable niches and trending products. It's also important to analyze your competitors' products to understand what works and what doesn't, to really focus on your product features, pricing, and ensuring you have those customer reviews. The more reviews you have, the more chance there is that people will buy from you. If you have 6,000 reviews, and if a competitor has 60 reviews, then they're more likely to buy from you. Also, using relevant keywords in your product titles, bullet points and descriptions to improve search visibility. Using those high resolution images that showcase products from multiple angles and highlight key features. These are really good for mobile friendly as well, using those images. Using sponsored products to increase visibility in search results. And choosing the right fulfillment option, whether that be FBA, Webinterpret, or someone else, and obviously deciding whether or not using Linnworks would be helpful for you as well to maintain all of your orders in one centralized location. And then just a last point, when deciding to start selling in international markets, it's very key to choose a specific market. So that's something Webinterpret can help you with if you're currently a UK seller and you're not sure what market you want to enter next. If you want that to be the US or a European market, we can support you in that decision. So make sure you choose a specific market. It's really important when you're going to start selling internationally to start small in order to gain valuable insights as well. You don't want to be putting all of your listings into the US or into a German market without testing to see what works and what doesn't work first. So it's really important to ensure you have a small amount of inventory to start with that you know or think is going to sell well in those international markets. Again, that is something we can support you with, and doing those things ultimately minimizes the risk of failure in those international markets. So just overall, it's really important to make sure you have the right tools and the right partners to work with when you're thinking about expanding in international markets, and then how you can ultimately manage those listings, manage your stock levels and your orders, optimize those listings, ensuring that they're going to sell well in the specific markets. So yeah, that's everything that I had to cover today. So Chris, do you have anything to add, or are you happy?
No, all good, all good.
Okay, perfect. So last thing is to just say thank you to everyone that joined the webinar today, or if you are watching at a later date, thank you so much for watching the recording. If you are watching live, then you will receive a special gift after the webinar. So you'll have a special offer from both ourselves at Webinterpret, and Linnworks will also have a special offer for you. So we will follow up in an email shortly after the webinar. So yeah, thank you very much for joining. We hope this was very useful and insightful for you. We will also be sending out a survey, so any feedback is very much welcomed so that we can improve our webinars in the future. Thank you.